Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the beautiful Jamie Hart. Jamie, how you doing today?
I'm doing really good, thanks.
It's amazing to have you here. I'm super, super excited to have you. This has been a long time coming. We've been friends for a really long time, and it's about time that we just broke down and said, let's just fricking do this thing. So,
Right, I've
um,
been watching you for like a really long time, so it's really exciting to be here.
no, the honor's all mine, I promise. But before we talk about why you're here, Jamie, I would like for the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit. Jamie is a cinephile and horror junkie that loves Twin Peaks and David Lynch movies, which is what originally had brought her onto the YouTube platform. Um, Eventually just expanding into all horror, being a part of the horror community, which is a very tight knit group for those of you that don't know. If you're watching these videos and you're not a part, I hate to say not a part of the horror community because if you're watching this, you're a part of our horror community. I promise you that. We love you and accept you. But there's a lot of content creators that are very good friends behind the scenes. We're always talking, we're always congratulating each other, we're always patting each other on the back, and it's a really amazing community where we're all very, very proud of each other. And that's how Jamie and I had actually came into contact, was being a part of the community and always being on the same streams and stuff like that. So you've been doing YouTube for a little bit now, Jamie, but what gave you the push to finally go, you know what? This is what I want to do. I want to start creating content. I want people to know how I feel about these things.
Well, really it was just really wanting to talk with friends, you know. I wanted to talk I don't have a lot of friends around here that are into movies the way that I am, and a lot of times when I'm trying to converse with somebody, they'll look at me like I have no clue what you're even talking about. So I was really just looking for an outlet. And really, how it started was I was watching Showtime one night, and the Twin Peaks music comes on, and it said coming 2016, and I jumped out of my chair and I started screaming and going crazy, and my husband's like, what is the matter with you? And I'm like, well, I just found out my favorite TV show of all time is coming back, and it's been 25 years, and that's exactly what they said in the show, that they would come back 25 years later. So it was very exciting for me. So I went right online and I started having conversations with people. And little did I know, I was having conversations with the actual people who actually were responsible for bringing the show back. They literally they had made missing posters of Agent Cooper, and they put them out there all over the place in Europe and in the United States. And David Lynch caught wind, and Mark Frost caught wind, and pretty soon they were making the show. And like I said, I started talking to, some very in the know people. And pretty soon, I just ended up on one of those shows, and I was on that show for 2 years, Twin Peaks Coffee Time. And what happened there was I kind of followed one of those people into the horror community because they used to be on The Sausage Factory back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to watch The Sausage Factory quietly in the background all the time because, I wasn't sure they wanted women talking in there because it was called The Sausage Factory.
Right.
But I really loved those guys. It was Piz and Christian and Stone and all those guys. And I was like, well, I'll just be quiet in the background, listen. But one night they were talking about Friday the 13th, and I was like, I can't keep quiet anymore. So I asked them in the chat, is it okay for women to talk? And they said, yes. Oh my gosh, of course it is. And pretty soon, it was about a month or a month and a half later, they asked me to be part of the show, and they changed the name to Region Free.
Yeah.
And then the rest is history, because after that I decided to start doing a little bit of my own thing on my own channel. And I also do things on other people's channels. I'll guest on other people's channels whenever I get a chance. I do that actually more than I do my own thing. Most of the stuff on my own channel right now is more stuff like hiking videos and me doing karaoke songs, and just basically just showing the beauty around where I live and stuff like that. But there are a few random live streams in there talking about horror, and there's a few reviews in there, but you got to pick and choose through them. But
Yeah.
I will be doing a lot more horror content now on my channel. I feel kind of guilty because last month I was horror YouTuber of the month. And I was like, I don't think I really qualify for that. But the community was like, we don't care. We're going to put you in there. And if you win, you win. I was like, all right. And I won. So
That's all. Well, for good reason. And like I said, starting off with Christian and Piz, I'm very good friends with both of those guys, and you came highly recommended by both of them. So to see the growth that you've had is just super amazing. And the best thing, guys, is you don't have to go far to find Jami, because I have all her social media links as well as the YouTube link right in the description. So make sure you're following her on social media. Make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube so you can become a part of her family as well. Um, Now, in order for you to do all these things in the horror community, even being a part of Region Free and all those things, horror had to start for you somewhere, Jami. So now
yeah.
I would like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie, and
Okay.
Jami, your first horror movie was.
Jaws, when I was 3 years old. And I remember it as if it was yesterday. And it's crazy because at 3 years old, you think a 3-year-old wouldn't remember this, but it was an extremely significant day in my life. And my parents decided they wanted to go see Jaws. It was Jaws and Freebie and the Bean as a double feature at the drive-in. And Freebie and the Bean was first. So they figured, oh, Jami, she'll just fall asleep. But I
Right,
knew, I saw the commercials on TV for Jaws. So I knew, what was coming, and I wasn't going to go to sleep. And I knew I wasn't going to go to sleep. So when Jaws started and I wasn't asleep, they started to freak out a little bit. And I was like, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. You told me TV was fake and,
right,
movies are fake. And they were like, okay, until it got to the part where Bruce the shark is coming up and, biting that boat in half, and Quint, gets it. I was going like this in the back seat, like this, because my parents were trying to cover my eyes and I wanted to see it. And
right,
after the scene was all over, they said, well, aren't you scared? And I said, no, I'm not scared. You told me not to be scared because you said it was fake. So why would I be afraid?
right.
And pretty much after that, it was just horror. I had my mom reading me Grimm's fairy tales. I had, I was every time the original Halloween commercial would come on TV, I would stop dead in my tracks. I'd watch the commercial and then I'd go back to what I was doing. I also saw Halloween. That was my next horror movie. I saw Halloween at the drive-in as well when that came out because my stepmom wanted to see it real bad. And
Yeah.
my dad was like, I can't take Jami to that. No, no. And I said, I want to see it. I want to see it. So my dad allowed it, and everything has pretty much gone since then. It's been like HBO and Showtime and the movie theater. I practically lived there in the 80s and 90s. So a lot of times you'll see me saying in people's chats, I saw that in the theater, I saw this in the theater, and everybody's like, you saw everything in the theater, and I'm like, I did, honestly, I did.
Well, especially in
So,
the 80s and 90s, that was what we had to do. Like
yeah,
we didn't have 8 different streaming services and
right.
all this. Like if we wanted to see something, we got our ass to the theater, because if we didn't see it in the theater, sometimes it wouldn't come out on video for 6 months to a year later. It
Yeah,
wasn't like
sometimes
now,
even
like, oh, I
longer
didn't
than
miss
that
it
back
in the
then.
first. Yeah, like if
Yeah,
you didn't see it in the first month, like, oh, it's going to be streaming in a month anyway. Don't worry about it. No, like
right,
we need to go see it now. So,
right.
you know, Jaws is a very influential movie, and I know you saw it at a very young age at the drive-in, which is so fucking dope, so sweet. But do you remember, Jami, which scene it was that affected you the most?
um the scene that affected me the most, probably the scene that I was talking about, with Quint getting bit in half. That probably affected me the most. But I think that the thing that really drew me into Jaws wasn't just about that scene. It was about the very beginning with the girl, getting pulled under the water by the shark, and the way that she was breathing and was really panicked. And then, it was Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw, showing each other scars, and you know Robert Shaw singing that crazy song he was singing. Those kinds of things drew me in and made me like that movie. And also, I think it kind of uh, it sort of started me on a political journey too, even because I noticed that this mayor guy wasn't closing the beaches when he should be closing the beaches. And I even asked my mom, well, how come he's not closing the beaches if there's a shark? And she said, some people are just not very smart. They're just not very smart, Jami. So I think that the whole movie, it had an effect on me as a whole, which is what sent me into my horror journey.
And it's funny because we still have people that wouldn't close a beach even if there was a shark there. So definitely understand what you mean by that too. Um, and it is a movie that, like, we've even had the argument of, is Jaws a horror movie? Is it not a horror movie? I would never slam anybody for their opinion. I've always said yes, Jaws is 100% a horror film. If someone wants to call it, a sci-fi, an action, a fantasy, whatever, I'll always say it's horror. It's a giant shark trying to kill people. I'm out. I'm done.
Yeah.
Um, and this movie is to the point to where it's quotable, has some of the best quotes in all of cinema history. But we know which scene affected you the most, Jamie. But what would you say your favorite scene from Jaws is?
Well, that's pretty easy one because I saw that shooting star in the movie, right? And my parents were looking away at this scene. And I said, shooting star, they're looking up in the sky, you know? And I'm like, no, on the movie. My dad didn't believe me. He's like, no, there's no shooting star. You're crazy. There was nothing. He really did capture a real shooting star. I found that out years later. But one, like, I don't know, it was probably I was 15 one night where I was sitting in the living room with my dad watching Jaws, and that scene came up, and he saw it for the first time, and he looked at me and he goes, oh my God. And I said, I told you it was there. And he said, I didn't believe you all these years, and it was really there. I said, see, I'm very observant. So, he was
And
pretty
again,
excited that was there.
we couldn't just go and look up on the internet. Was there
No.
a shooting star in Jaws? You either seen it or you didn't. That was it.
Yeah.
That was the end of it. So,
Yeah.
and you couldn't take a screenshot. If you paused it on a VHS, you'd get the tracking, and it's a lot harder to do this type of thing back then. So,
Yeah.
um, Jaws, beyond the pale of movies that people quote when they say, this is one of the best horror movies of all time. This is a movie that I think has stood the test of time. So I got to ask you, with all the remakes, requels, reboots that are happening, is Jaws a movie that you would like to see remade today?
No. No. And here's the thing. I am against most of these reboots and redos and remakes, and not all of them, but some of them. Like, don't touch don't touch the classics. Don't touch Jaws. Don't touch The Exorcist. Don't They did an okay job with Friday the 13th, but they really messed up with Nightmare on Elm Street. Um, Sometimes a remake is really good though, and sometimes a movie does deserve a remake. Like, I really think that The Fly from 1986 is probably one of the best remakes ever made, and it definitely outshines its original.
Mhm.
But I don't necessarily feel that way about some of the newer ones that are coming out. I feel like a lot of times these people are remaking things just for the sake of remaking them rather than they have a good idea. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah,
So,
it's a money grab. It's a
right,
cash grab, is what it is.
right.
And while me personally, I would never. I love remakes for a couple reasons. One, I do like to see it being reimagined. Sometimes I think it can work out really well. Like, I really like the Evil Dead 2013 remake. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. And another way that a remake, even if it's god awful, can help is people that have never seen the original will go back and watch the original
Yeah.
because they hear the remakes coming out. Like, the sales on Halloween 1978 went up like 38% the year that Halloween 2018 came out. So,
Oh,
like, when you have these people that have never seen it, never heard of it, this younger generation, maybe they'll go back and watch it and be like, wow, I missed out on this. And it's all thanks to the remake. So I think that they can
right.
be beneficial in their own ways as well. So um Jaws, whether we like it or not, and I think I know the answer, but God, I gotta ask. um Jaws is part of a franchise. There are
Mhm.
4 films in the Jaws franchise now. Is the original your favorite, or is there one you like a little more?
The original is my favorite. I do really like two. I thought it was, if you want to go by like the Star Wars measure up, I do think like sometimes a movie can outdo its original, like Star
Oh,
Wars.
absolutely.
Um, uh, Empire Strikes Back outdid Star Wars to me. Well, I kind of feel that way about Jaws too, a little bit, as far as like the overall movie itself. But Jaws 1 will always be my favorite of the series because I have such a connection. Literally, that was the last time that my parents were together.
Oh,
So
okay.
that might have something to do with why I remember it so well also. But my dad would say, no, you just have a photographic memory, because he literally used to like, he'd teach me trivia, about movies and music and stuff. And then he would take me to his parties with all his friends, and he'd say, hey, Jamie, come here. And he'd start rattling stuff off. I was like, I don't know, 5 or 6. And I just start spewing out, answers to these questions. And he took it, he noticed it when I was really young, that I had this unbelievable memory. I was able to memorize a lot of things. So
Right.
that's probably a big reason why um, I remember Jaws so well, though, is because it really was the last time my parents were together.
Sure.
Um, we were talking about sequels. That's right. As far as the sequels go, I really like 3 because I love Dennis Quaid and I think he's awesome. And I think that movie's so cheesy, but cheesy in a good way. But 4, that's awful. It was so bad. It's funny. I find it like funny because it's so bad. And the fact that they just reuse shots from the original and the end and stuff, like it was not a necessary sequel. It had a horrible plot line. I mean,
Yeah.
sharks on revenge. It's just ridiculous. It's so silly. It's funny. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's how I feel about the sequels.
I love to. Obviously, I think the first is the best. And I will always say that. Jaws is one of the 2 movies that I've always said are untouchable. You cannot remake it. And the only 2 I've ever said that about are Jaws and Back to the Future. You cannot touch those movies. Leave them alone. They are absolutely perfect the way they are. Don't try to do
Mhm.
anything else to them. But Jaws 2 is a fantastic film that gets overlooked because of how great Jaws 1 is. So I do agree with
Mhm.
you on that. Um, so we talked about Jaws, Jamie, and what that means to you. But here for a second, my little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Jamie? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Oh, this is a tough question. Um, ooh, I don't, I'm gonna have to say it's between The Shining and The Exorcist. And the reason why is because I think I've seen those 2 movies more than anything
Mhm.
in the entire universe. Um, the thing is, like, I have more fun, and this is a hot take. um, I love The Exorcist too. I love The Exorcist too. I think it is a gorgeously shot movie. I think it gets. I realize that it's muddy. Though it's completely flawed, and I love the flaws. I'm stuttering a lot. Sorry.
No, look. I love you, and I always will. I hate The Exorcist too. It's my
I
least favorite
know.
movie of all time. So when you said it, I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
it's
Christy."
okay. I know that it's odd, and I know that a lot of people, don't like it. But for me, I grew up watching that movie just as much as I grew up watching The Exorcist.
Sure.
So for me, it was an inspiration. Um, for me as a amateur photographer, I look at it and I go, wow, man, there are some shots in there that are just absolutely beautiful. And the score is absolutely beautiful too. And I realize that there's so much wrong with the movie itself and the plot line, but there's things about it that I will always love, like the idea of the good locust, and the idea of the I like the idea of the sink thing. Now I know that's like ridiculous and never could work, but when you're a kid watching this movie, you think everything's real. So
Sure.
I thought that was cool how they could go into each other's minds and stuff like that. And it also inspired me to want to be a psychologist in the future. There's 2 movies that did that. That one and Friday the 13th Part 2, and that's a whole
Yeah.
nother story.
Yeah.
But I honestly think The Exorcist 2 might be that. I'm gonna say it's my favorite movie of all time, but it really isn't, because The Exorcist 1 is a better movie. But personally, I really have more fun watching Exorcist 2.
To each their own. Like I said,
Yeah.
if we all liked and disliked the same stuff, this would be boring and we'd have no reason to
Right.
even have YouTube. So I
Right.
respect it. I don't understand it, but I respect it. Um, so again, I've had an amazing time talking to you about Jaws and The Exorcist too. But before I let you go, we always bounce back to the same question, Jamie. We're going to bounce back over to Jaws. And what we're going to do is rank this movie on a skull count. Now, we're
Okay.
not ranking Jaws on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. We're not being critics. What we're doing here, Jamie, is strictly ranking Jaws on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So, 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Jamie, what would your ranking of Jaws be?
Oh, it's a definite 5 because I mean, literally, without me seeing Jaws, I don't know if I would be sitting here right now. I don't know
Right.
if my journey would have gone the same direction. It may have because I showed an interest in entertainment altogether, but I don't know if it would have sent me on the horror movie journey that I've been on. So for me, definitely it's a 5.
And I completely understand and respect it. So, um, I do want to remind everybody because we are at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, all of Jamie's links are down in the description below. So make sure you're following her on social media. Make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel so you can become a part of her horror family as well. Jamie, please don't go anywhere. I have a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
Um, Everybody else, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It really does help the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Our links are down in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.